Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Amelia Buckley.
And we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help make it one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through your social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, real office-worthy podcast. Today is Thursday, the 20th of May, 2021. Good morning, Kristy.
Good morning. How are you doing today, Amelia?
I'm good. How are you?
Nice. It's nice to get you 2 days in a row. You know, Summers has been down for the count for a couple of days. She's recovering well, I'm sure, and we'll talk to her tomorrow. But it's great to just get to spend this little bit with you.
I know. It's nice. It's a good way to start my morning. I mean, I'm always listening to you guys to start the morning, but it's fun to get up and talk about my day a little bit.
True. Fun fact, Amelia is always on this call with us because she actually does the production and the audio editing for our little podcast here. So
I'm secretly listening. I usually make breakfast while listening to you guys record the podcast.
When we're recording, and then you clean us up afterwards.
Yeah, my morning little ritual.
I love it.
How are you? Are you in the real office or your home office today?
Today I am working from home. The end of the week tends to be my home office location. I kind of like it. I like having the mixture. I think this hybrid approach is going to be something that I want to preserve. I was talking about this with Summers last week, that is, I think, the way that the world might be moving as we reimagine, reinvent our workspaces and our home spaces and figure out how we want to open up.
I think we're going to see a real boon in those. I mean, we use them at the Optimist Daily sometimes, the co-work spaces where you can rent out conference rooms or work desk spaces for a day or a few hours or whatever, because I think a lot of companies are feeling the same way that, you know, the bulk of your work can be done remotely and there's just a few things that are nice to collaborate in person on, but you don't really need to pay rent in a whole office 5 days a week or 7 days a week.
Yeah. Speaking of what I'm going to do in terms of getting together and working in person, I am now going to be flying to Austin. And
that's so exciting.
Working with Summers the first week of June. So that'll be
maybe you can help her set up her compost bin.
Yeah, that's what I'll be doing. I'll be in her yard setting up her compost bin.
You guys are going to be able to record the podcast together for the first time ever.
We'll have to see how that goes, and you might have a bit more of audio editing on your hands.
But I think we'll help with the speaking of, we just did it, the talking over each other, because it's hard. We don't record with video, so you don't get that same visual cue of when the other person is about to say something. And so then there's that classic Zoom, like awkward silence, and you're like, no, you go, no, you go.
It's like driving in Los Angeles when people don't know quite who's going to go through the intersection next.
Very true. Okay, but you're going to Texas, which is perfect for the story that you're talking about today because it's based at UT Austin, right?
That is exactly true. The article that I wanted to highlight, the headline reads, "This long-lost river could provide modern-day climate solutions." And this is talking about an area in the Gulf of Mexico known as the Trinity River Paleo Valley, which has been submerged underwater right now. But 20,000 years ago, when ice covered the immense areas of the planet, sea levels were significantly lower, meaning that the valley was not underwater, but was rather a lively coastline through which the Trinity River ran. Researchers from the University of Texas at Austin's Institute for Geophysics are working to map the curves of that long-lost river, hoping that it will provide some clues into the future of our warming climate. And by looking at how the water filled in the coastal region thousands of years ago, they can get insight into an indication of how rising seas will affect today's coastlines as sea levels rise. I love this article just because I like digging in the earth, and even on a geological level, archaeological, geological, it's so interesting to see how the history gets written into the stone, into the rocks, and how that can give you insight into today. So they've been working off a boat off the coast of Houston, collecting the samples, which then they scan for sandy particles. And depending on the sand that they find versus the mud that they find, they can indicate how the ancient riverbed sort of lived or existed 20,000 years ago. And this will also potentially give insight into coastal restoration projects. The Texas beaches have been replenished with sand 89 times since the 1950s, since the erosion that, me. Yeah, 89 times. And we have to deal with that here in Goleta, where I live as well, because the coastal erosion that carries away that sand is an issue if you want to preserve a coastline. But finding sand that matches the natural ecosystems and doesn't detract from the habitat that it's been extracted from is a challenge. And sand is actually a surprisingly scarce resource, especially the different types of sand that are needed, because it's also used in manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So this project is another way of thinking about how sandy sections from the Gulf floor might be able to be moved to sand for coastal restoration that goes beyond just resanding, and it creates a more sustainable coastline. This
reminded me of when we had those mudslides in Montecito here in California, in Southern California, a couple years ago. They had all of this mud that they didn't really know what to do with. And so they took it and they dumped all the mud along the beaches on the northern side of Santa Barbara and Goleta, where Kristy lives. And it was kind of a controversial action because they just took all this mud and they dumped it there. And it was mud that had come from the mountains that they were dumping on the beaches. So it wasn't really ecologically sound, but they couldn't just leave all the mud in downtown Montecito. So it was a big controversy here. And this reminded me of that because I didn't really realize how scarce sand was until I started researching this article. And I guess you can't just buy up sand, which is why that same solution we wrote about in Louisiana is taking glass bottles and recycling them into sand, because they're facing very similar issues.
Yes, exactly. And so keeping our sandy beaches, you think about those are unusual. And as the sea level rises, it'll affect the coastlines, whether it's a coastline of the ocean or a coastline of a river delta, which is what the Trinity River insight gives us. Yeah, so that was my article. And speaking of sustainable solutions that are inspired by nature, Amelia, yes. What do you want to talk about today?
So my article I chose because part of it's that I have a travel itch, and the Netherlands was my favorite places that I've been. I went in the spring and I got to see the tulip fields, but they are, capitalizing on their classic tulips to make their wind energy systems a little more visually appealing. So a company that is based in the Netherlands has come up with tulip turbines that are vertical wind turbines that look like the classic tulips that grow in the Netherlands. And we've written before about vertical turbines, so they have some advantages over your classic 3-pronged turbines, wherein they're not dangerous. They're not as dangerous to birds because they don't have as much surface area that their turbine covers. And then they also take up less space. You can put them closer together, whereas traditional wind turbines have to be placed further apart. And they're just a little bit more visually appealing. People are more likely to accept them in their community than larger classic turbines, which some people think are ugly.
The spinning blades, it's more like the fan, the
mm-hmm.
big fan,
the huge fans.
The pinwheel blades.
This design goes one step beyond just regular vertical turbines, and they are actually turbines that look like tulips. So you have to go check out this article because you have to see the picture for yourselves. But they're essentially vertical turbines with 3 curving vertical blades that come together to look like the bloom of a tulip. And they're really beautiful. They're different colors, and they're placed in, I think they're located in Amsterdam. They're in an urban setting, but they're more aerodynamic, and they produce more energy per square meter than solar panels, which is really interesting. And I think they're really beautiful. So you can go take a look at them. But they're showing how renewable energy can be more beautifully integrated into our urban spaces and can become more ubiquitous, because you can't really put wind turbines in big cities, but you can put these vertical turbines in cities, and you can put them on rooftops. And
right, exactly. These can actually be a rooftop turbine solution that might, if you live in a windy space that maybe doesn't have the huge solar resources, but you have wind resources, you can put these on the rooftops, and these turbines can produce more energy per square meter than a solar panel would in that situation. So it can actually be a sort of a little microgrid, a tulip turbine microgrid.
I'm thinking of Chicago. The windy city needs tulip turbines.
Well, even here, like this week, we were having wind warnings in the coastal Santa Barbara areas because the massive wind is coming down. And I don't know, my roofs aren't good for solar because I have lots.
You could have a pitched wind turbine, sideways wind turbine.
I can put it in my little tiny backyard. No, probably not. But I just can't connect to the renewable energy grid at all with my house. Failure there. But it's fun. It's fun. I like the tulip idea, and I like designs which are inspired by natural systems.
I do too.
Which to me is what the tulip turbines are. I love it. All right.
Well, they're even more beautiful than the weird telephone poles that look like trees.
Those are kind of weird. The cell towers that are designed like a big tree. Very confusing. All right. A few other headlines from today. We have 6 tips to get every last drop out of your limes and lemons this season. If you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, snacking on sardines might prevent diabetes onset. Ooh, yum, fish breath. Jaden Smith expands free vegan food truck into a restaurant for the homeless. What else?
We've got major firms sign ambitious deal to cut plastic waste in the Pacific. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Endangered red wolves give birth to 12 healthy pups at the North Carolina Zoo. It's a very cute story. The pandemic has spurred a surge in African medical tech. It's an interesting study. And looking to shop seasonally, here are 16 resources to get you started. So if you're looking to make your shopping a little bit sustainable. Yes, for groceries.
Shopping for vegetables sustainably.
That's all we have today, but thank you for listening to the Optimist Daily today. We promise to share positive, solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in changing this world and ensure it is changed for good. We promise to cover current events with accuracy, legitimate sources, and offer you the information needed most to chart new paths for all of us.
And if you have the means and you haven't already signed up as an emissary, please consider becoming one on theoptimistdaily.com. And you can help support us by doing a $5 or a little bit more a month payment or donation. And you can help support reader-funded independent journalism. Be a part of the solution-changing consciousness that addresses our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. Please help us keep the Optimist Daily free for everyone who needs it, supported by those of us who can. Thank you, everybody, and we will be back tomorrow, or at least I will, for Friday. Or do we have an interview tomorrow, Amelia?
I think we might actually have an interview tomorrow, but
okay. So anyway, I will be there, but we may not be focused on the stories. Great to be here, Amelia. It's been fun having you on the pod, and hope everybody has a great Thursday. Talk to you on Friday.